Everyone thinks that they love confidence. But what happens when what they often mean is they love the version of you that seems untouchable? The you that never falters or never hesitates or never doubts. The version that walks into a room with such clarity and command with no questions and no wrinkles. But what if that version is really this carefully assembled performance? Not because you're manipulative, but because you're really scared. Scared that if they saw the mess, like the doubt, the desire, the confusion, they would turn away. Scared that if you admitted you're not actually sure who you are anymore, for example, or what you want, or even what you believe, that the applause would stop. The admiration would dry up and the invitations would disapparate. And maybe worst of all, scared that they'll pity you. So you keep on smiling and you keep answering confidently and you keep showing up with your shoulders back and with your insights polished and even when something deep inside of you is just begging for rest, you keep going. You're begging for honesty and just a chance to be let out, but there's not that option. See, we don't often talk about this exhaustion of being the confident one, the one who's articulate, the one who's grounded, the one who everyone turns to for advice and support or even inspiration. But it's a strange kind of pain, though, to be so admired while feeling so unknown. To be praised for how solid you seem when you're just one tremor away from collapse. At Uber Bintegers, I often describe integrity as living in alignment with your internal values and your external actions. And intimacy I describe as intimacy. But when you're stuck performing confidence and not living it, both of those get compromised. Integrity fractures under the weight of unspoken truths, and intimacy becomes impossible when you're never actually letting people see you. You just show them the persona that feels safest. And ironically, the more convincing you are, the lonelier it gets. Because people don't offer comfort to someone that they think is doing just fine. They don't lean in with care when you're out here nailing every conversation and managing every crisis and making it all look so easy. They assume that you've got it all under control and they admire you from a distance, which only deepens that pain. So many of us, I think, were raised in these kind of environments, homes, churches, even cultures that basically conditioned us to believe that vulnerability was weakness and that sharing too much of our inner world would make people uncomfortable. Or worse, it would disappoint them. And so we developed this mask of composure and this shield of positivity, this armor of certainty. And the longer we wore it, the harder it becomes to take off. Sometimes it becomes our whole identity. And so we forget what's underneath. Or we've hidden those parts so long that they feel alien, dangerous, or even shameful. See, this episode is for the ones who know how to lead like in a room, but feel like they're actually losing themselves. It's for the ones who say, I'm good, with this practiced smile, but secretly they're craving someone who's going to ask, but are you really? It's for those of us who've spent years crafting a version of ourselves that others can trust, even if it means we can no longer trust ourselves. This is not about blaming. This is about breaking free. And it starts with one terrifying but liberating idea, and that is you're allowed to be real. Even if it confuses people, even if it disappoints them, even if it costs you some of that admiration. Because the deeper invitation is not to be admired, but to be known. And there's no knowing without honesty. So we'll keep unfolding this idea here. See, you can only perform confidence for so long before something in your soul starts fraying. And often it's not even the performance itself that breaks you. It's It's the silence that follows that performance, the absence of real care, the loneliness of being celebrated but never being seen. See, I know this well. In fact, for decades, I was a master of it. As a highly proficient people pleaser and as a competent codependent, I, I gave the I got applause wherever I was for my moral virtuosity, especially in my religious community where being put together was often the highest badge of honor. It wasn't obnoxious. In fact, I think it was quite compelling. I was gentle, kind, insightful, measured. Everyone not only respected me, they were inspired by how I seemed to carry myself, how consistent I was, how emotionally grounded I appeared. And yet, underneath the surface, I was drowning. See, that image that was so tidy and so anchored was actually built on fragile scaffolding of shame because I didn't feel safe enough to let anyone see the full story, the doubts that I carried, the desires that I was taught to suppress, the questions that I was told would unravel the faith that I'd built my life around. I knew what people expected of me, and so I gave it to them. And it came at a cost. I became split. My public self and my private self grew further apart. My deepest curiosities and truths lived in secret, while the version of me that walked through the world became more and more polished, more and more admired, more and more alone. People called me confident, but inside I felt like a fraud. And what made it worse was that I couldn't tell them that they were wrong, because I wasn't even sure who I really was anymore. See, this is a trap of performed confidence. The more praise you receive for the mask, the more afraid you become of showing your real face. Because what if they only love the version of you that you've invented, right? What if their respect is conditional, tied not to your soul, but to your presentation? So you keep the mask on, even when it starts to suffocate you. And the tragedy here isn't just personal, it's cultural. See, we live in a world that elevates image over essence. And we celebrate the confident speaker more than the honest one. And we reward polish more than presence. And we mistake charisma for wholeness and composure for maturity. And in this system, the ones who are quietly unraveling learn to do so in silence. They journal in the dark. They weep behind closed doors. They Google phrases like feeling like a fraud or when you look strong but feel broken. And they show up to brunch with a smile, then leave wondering if anyone really knew them at all. But here's the thing. Performing confidence is not the same as having it. One is about appearance, and the other is about alignment. See, real confidence does not mean never doubting. It means being anchored enough to admit when you're unsure. It means being at peace with your own complexity. It means being no longer outsourcing your worth to others' opinions or applause. That kind of confidence isn't just flashy. It's real, and it's where intimacy begins. Because when we stop performing, we create space for connection. Not the kind that's built on admiration, but the kind that's rooted in mutual knowing. But the shift from performance to presence does not happen overnight, right? And it's terrifying at first. Because when you've spent years, and maybe even decades, earning love through projection, peeling back these layers can feel like self-betrayal. See, you're not just risking disapproval, you're risking collapse of an identity that has protected you for so long. And yet, the longer that you wait, the heavier it becomes to carry. At Uber Bintegers, I want to help people untangle the knots between how they're seen and who they truly are. Not with shame or with pressure, but with gentleness, with language for what's been silent, with permission to stop performing, even if they don't know who they'll be without the act. And it's why I believe so strongly in the kind of inner alignment that we call integrity. Integrity isn't just about moral correctness, it's about internal coherence. It's about when the invisible matches the outside, the insides and the outsides are matching. When you are privately no longer contradicting who you are publicly. When your confidence comes not from performance, but from congruence. See, I still remember the day I realized I couldn't live with a split anymore. There was this moment when I looked around at the admiration I was receiving, and instead of feeling proud, I felt panic. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I knew it wasn't fully mine. They were applauding an image. They did not know the man. And in some deep, painful way, I wanted them to. Not so I could be praised again, but so I could be free. And that was the beginning of my unraveling. I started being more honest. Not all at once, but in these small, terrifying doses. I admitted when I was unsure. I acknowledged desires I'd buried for years. I let go of the performative virtue that had once been my ticket to so many rooms. And slowly people began to see the rest of me. Not just the polished fragments that I presented, but the whole story. And many, many walked away. But the few who stayed, they became the first people I ever trusted with the truth that is me. And it really changed everything for me, because the greatest gift of being known is it's not that people like you more. It's that you no longer need them to like you more. You don't have to manage their perceptions anymore. You don't have to shapeshift. You don't have to silence the parts of yourself just to remain palatable. You get to show up full and messy and whole. And that, paradoxically, is what gives your presence real power. Because it's not because you're perfect, but because you're real. This is the shift that turns performed confidence into embodied confidence. One is about survival, whereas the other one's about freedom. But here's the part that no one really tells you. The world will still try to pull you back into performance. Even after you've started showing up authentically, even after you've tasted freedom of alignment, there will still be moments where the old mask beckons, where the fear of being misunderstood or unloved or too much whispers to you again. Because the fear doesn't vanish. It softens, it quiets, but it doesn't disappear. Which is why we need regular, repeated reminders of our deeper truth. Not the kind that comes from applause, but the kind that's rooted in integrity and intimacy. You see, integrity, you need integrity to keep showing up truthfully, even when it's costly. And intimacy to let others into your truth, even when it's messy. See, this is the heartbeat of everything that I want to do here at Uber Bintegers, and that's helping people living in alignment with their truth and build connections that's rooted in mutual knowing. See, we're not here to impress or convince, we're here to become. And that becoming demands honesty. The kind that begins first with ourselves. It means asking, where am I still performing? Where am I managing perceptions instead of living from my truth? What part of me is going to be known, but afraid that it will be left? These aren't easy questions, but they are clarifying ones, because when we stop hiding behind confidence, we start building something far more enduring, and that's credibility. The kind that comes from lived congruence, the kind that builds trust and not just admiration, the kind that allows us to be real with ourselves and with the world around us. And this kind of life I mean, it might lose you some applause, but it will give you something far more rare, and that's this sense of peace. The peace of not having to keep up appearances, the peace of being known, even amidst your complexity, the peace of walking through the world without needing to be believed to be whole, because you already are whole. So if you've been wearing a smile that doesn't really match your eyes, if you've been praised for the mask and not who you are, if you've ever wondered whether the people around you would stay if they saw all of you, let this be your quiet revolution. Start small. Start scared, but start now. And little by little, the world will meet the real you. The one who doesn't perform, the one who's actually been aching to become. Because that you is worthwhile. Thanks for listening in. Let me know how this landed for you down in the comments below.